let's take a look at the visual details that you might have missed. The castellations on this wall show me that the party is exiting Calm, because Calm is a walled-in fort town. Now, the party is entering the large, open, beautiful world for the very first time. They are seeing this beautiful, open grasslands for the very first time, and it is evoking the feelings to the player that they got from the original Final Fantasy VII back in 1997 when you stepped outside of Midgar for the first time and you saw that large open world. Now, you know, it's a little different here because you're exiting Calm this time around in Rebirth, but it makes sense because at the end of intermission, the party did hitch a ride from Midgar to Calm, so they kind of skipped that whole area. We can see the river outside of Calm and how they've done a pretty excellent job of translating a map from the PS1 era into this beautiful modern open zone. We can see points of interest such as windmills. I kind of want to say that this part where the mountains split is the entrance to the Mithril mines, and the swamp area is just beyond those trees. Off to the right looks like some sort of ruins, which will not only be a lot of fun to explore, but it also adds a richness to the world's lore that the original just wasn't able to do. It may not be Cetran of origin, but there's still so much history between then and now that they can now show in this open world. Wildlife is so cool to see, but my eyes are aching to see just a few more frames to see if the Cliff Resort, also known as the Healing Lodge from Advent Children, is in the cliffs just up ahead. The party are running down a wide linear path bordered by a rocky terrain, but I am hoping that getting a mountain chocobo will encourage backtracking to explore these areas that you were not able to before and open up this world even more. And then other modes of transportation? Well, more on that later. Could this be the forest outside of the Mithril mines on the Fort Condor side where you run into Yuffie like you did in the original? We do know that Yuffie is in the party later on in this trailer in the Junon area fighting alongside Red 13. The Chocobo farm is looking really different from the original and in Crisis Core depictions. This time, it makes more sense to have the Chocobos wandering in the fenced-in area connected to the stable rather than separated like it was in the original. Red 13 is lying down, and Aerith is waiting at the door. Here we see the party exploring those ruins I mentioned earlier, which I believe is situated alongside the mountains that houses the Mithril mines. This makes sense as the party is on Chocobos heading towards the marshes, which will require Chocobos to cross in Final Fantasy VII. Another interesting detail is the commands to scent and scour while on Chocobo back. Just another fun way to explore and discover these large open areas. A final thing about this scene is to point out that we see 4 characters traveling on Chocobos, and assuming Red is running alongside them. Well, I mean, although Red on a Chocobo would be pretty funny to see. It is so awesome to see the Cosmo Canyon Observatory recreated like this. The projection telescope looks very similar to the old VR projector from Intermission when fighting the diabolic creation as Yuffie and Sonon. This makes sense that Bugenhagen would be using old VR tech as he was once a Shinra employee, and Professor Gast provided Cosmo Canyon with the equipment needed for the observatory. Also, Aerith is standing on XII, which is 12 on the clock, in the Temple of Ancients, which is funny because that path leads to the Demon's Gate, and we all know what happens after that. Hey, it's Wutai seen from space! The world seems to be faithfully illustrated onto this planet in the Cosmo Canyon Observatory. We don't get to see Bugenhagen's feet! I just want to see his feet. I just want to see him. Is he floating on a ball? Is he sitting on the ball? Is he standing on the ball? Because it looks like his legs are not sitting cross-legged to, you know, I just need to see it. I need to see it. I need to see it in Remake. Okay, moving on. We see the party exploring an expanded Mithril mines. and they told me they wouldn't expand the Mithril mines. It's just a stupid little cave, maybe 2 screens. Stop it. They just need to keep moving. And I made that video a while back and they said, they laughed at me. I recommend you go back and check out that video for more on the Mithril mines. This massive pipe seems to be leading to Midgar to provide the Mako energy, located just beyond these mountains. I love how close Chase Summers' animation got to creating this moment in the fan-made Calm project. But hey, in Rebirth, they're not sitting on beds like they were in the original. Maybe they got a hotel suite this time around. Final Fantasy VII had variations of the Golem enemies. They looked a bit robotic in that game, but could have just been the fact that recoloring enemy types was common back on the PS1. Perhaps this was the original intention and now we see a Mithril Golem here. And maybe this enemy will be recurring, boasting a different element each time. Like later in the Great Glacier, we could see an Ice Golem that was in the original game. There's a few things that I'm noticing with the user interface. First, Red 13 is playable, baby. We all knew it, but hey, here it is. First shot of him being controlled by the player. He has a Vengeance mode tied to the triangle button, which I'm assuming will change Red's stance just as it changed Cloud's in Punisher mode. The layout is a bit different. I no longer see the shoulder buttons next to the characters' names. In Remake, the player could swap between party members using L2 and R2. And upon swapping characters in Remake, that would put the playable character's name at the bottom of the stack, where in Rebirth, it seems the playable character is always on top. Where the letters ATB were in Remake, it is now 5 blue bars. Could this be storing ATB bars? Or perhaps they indicate something else, like, I don't know, team-ups. Also interesting to note that although Barrett has 2 full ATB bars here, the command menu on the left indicates that there's none. Red 13 has none at the moment. Lastly here, definitely appears that the levels will reset as the party only has just over 1,000 max HP. I know that was a question on everyone's mind. Will stats carry over? Will your magic and materia carry over? It looks like it won't, everybody. And I wonder if there's going to be some sort of explanation story-wise in the game. We met Elena in the Mithril mines in Final Fantasy VII. It looks as if they are really expanding upon this location in Rebirth, as we can see a mining structure behind her. Looks like it may be an elevator shaft leading out of the mines. The ATB and commands menu bars have my attention. It definitely is updated from Remake, and I can't quite figure out what it all means for now. But I'd wager that the red circle by the commands menu is the summon indicator, and will probably glow red when it's ready. Looks like Aerith now has the Ward Shift command on triangle, which was Tempest in the original. Ward Shift just sounds like a stance change to me. Also, looks like tree roots to the left, which resembles the original game near the exit of the mines where the party encounters the Turks. Worth noting though, that there was no battle with the Turks in the original Final Fantasy VII, so this is definitely an addition in Rebirth. Also, the party is split up. Red and Barrett are facing the Golem, and Cloud and Tifa and Aerith are facing the Turks. I wonder if it's going to be kind of like in Final Fantasy VII Remake, Chapter 17, when you're exploring the drum and you're swapping back and forth between the parties. They are pretty close to the Cliff Resort here, so I wonder if the purple marker is to investigate that area as a side quest. Or maybe the Cliff Resort is just not in the game. Okay, guys, I think they've been pulling from the compilation, so I imagine that it is. I'm sure they didn't overlook it. The orange star marker is new, right? I've never seen that before, but it looks pretty important, so maybe it's telling the party to go to the Chocobo farm, or it's telling them to catch a Chocobo so they can reach the blue goal marker of the Mithril mine so they can cross the swamp, blah, blah, blah. About a minute and 24 seconds into the trailer, we saw a giant Mako pipe running over some cliffs leading into Midgar. Here, we see it again, or at least just one that's just like it off in the distance, showcasing just how large these open world areas are. The 1080p upload of Final Fantasy VII Remake games has got to stop. Please give us the 4K quality. We've been spoiled with Final Fantasy XVI coming in at 4K with every trailer. So it is really, really annoying to look at this 1080p image frame by frame. Whoo-hoo, she's a beaut! The Highwind is visible up top on Junon. First thing I notice about the Highwind is, whoa, it's pretty big. I couldn't imagine that thing and what it would look like parked right here in this open zone, which kind of tells me that it won't be. I'm not giving up on the idea just yet. I just don't think it would fit in with the disproportionate zones here in Rebirth. And if you don't know what I mean by that, well, it means that the world is significantly larger than what the party is actually traveling here. It's like 300 miles or something like that from Calm to Chocobo Farm. But in the game, it looks like it would only just take a few minutes on foot to get there. But when you enter Junon, just like it did in Remake with Midgar, it's going to feel massive, like you are actually in this gigantic city. Red 13 is attacking a caper wire. But what is the most interesting thing to note here is that Aerith and Tifa are seen in the background. They are not in the active party. So can characters swap in and out of the active party just as it was possible in Final Fantasy X? Or are we locked in the party we set before battle? Very interesting to see how this works, everyone, because in the next sequence, we see Aerith and Tifa in the active party, but it looks like the same exact location. I wonder if the two have to be swapped out and Cloud remains the party leader at all times, or if you can swap them out one at a time. Aerith and Tifa gain a yellow bar next to their limit gauge as they land their team up attack. What does that mean? Cloud and Barret team up to defeat an Alpha Dunk. Here we go, baby. The cargo ship. Jenova fight just as she was there in Final Fantasy VII. And I don't see any dead bodies or blood though. Remember that this was a massacre, just like in the original with the blood trails in Midgar. And I guess I just wouldn't be surprised if it has been edited down for the teen rating. Oh, thank you, Final Fantasy XVI, for being rated M. What is Sephiroth holding in his right hand? It looks like a piece of Jenova wrapped in a cloth. Definitely like a limb or something. This is what he is using to summon Jenova in the ensuing battle. I mean, it's not as cool as Sephiroth flying towards the party and just knocking them all down on their butts. I mean, I'm just kidding though. I'm just kidding. This is freaking terrifying, and I love what the remake trilogy is doing with the Jenova battles. It's just so awesome, taking them to this dreamscape location. It's also worth noting that based on the HP values that this is fairly early on in the game, which makes sense, of course, as the party has only been on, 2 or 3 serious missions before boarding the cargo ship. Cloud has about 1,300 max HP when he's just outside of Junon, and 1,688 max HP when fighting this fight, so he's leveled up some. Now, many have pointed out that this is Cloud, and he's part of the reunion. More thoughts on that in my story breakdown of this trailer coming later on this month. Watch as Sephiroth straight stops Tifa's full swing of the mass immune with his friggin' fingertip. With his friggin' fingertip. With his friggin' fingertip. Blood spray here. Thank you. Needed some blood, guys. Thank you. So, obviously, there is a lot to discuss when it comes to the story, and I will gather my thoughts on that aspect in the coming days. Thank you for being a Final fan. Subscribe if you haven't already. Take care now. Bye-bye then. with all within a few days. Midgar has had multiple terrorist attacks, a reactor bombed, an entire plate collapse. The president is now dead. A natural disaster is what they're saying this is. I mean, it is scary times to be a Midgar citizen. But I mean, what an awesome story that would be, though. If it was like a spin-off series, maybe like a Netflix series of just being a regular Midgar citizen during all of this. Wow.